Good evening, family. It's me, K Steps, and I'm back again with some breaking news. Um, it may not be breaking for some of you. Some of you may have already heard it, but for those of you who haven't heard it, I'm here to break the news to you. And it would be kind of funny if it wasn't so if it wasn't so pathetic. If it wasn't so pathetic, and if it wasn't so obviously the biggest lie and the biggest cover up of the century, it would be kind of funny. But anyway, I'll let's get into this. I'm not even gonna get into the housekeeping and all of that. Let's just get straight into this. The breaking news is that three suspects have been found and charged in the Joshua Brown murder. Yes, in the Joshua Brown murder, three suspects have been found. All of a sudden, all of a sudden, we got three suspects, and they've been found and they've been charged. And y'all are not going to be surprised. I'm quite sure you're not going to be surprised when you hear what the Dallas Police Department says is the reason why this young man was murdered. But let's go on into this. I got this article, and it's funny that it came from the Root, considering the fact that the Root is not, the best source for anything positive when it comes to black men. But I got the article from the Root, and is Ann Brannigan today at 5:16 p.m. And the headline is Police allege Joshua Brown, witness in Amber Geiger trial, was victim of botched interstate drug deal. Yes, people, yes. Yes, this young man who was slated and did testify for the prosecution in this case, a case against a white police officer charged with murdering a black man, was a drug dealer. He was a drug dealer. Now he being watched by the police. The police just looking for a reason and just looking for a way. You know what I'm saying? To discredit him so that his testimony could be discredited if possible, or so that they could discredit him, or find some reason for him not to even be able to testify. But knowing that he was under all of this scrutiny, knowing that he was being watched to the point where he had to move out of, not long after Botham was murdered by Amber Geiger, Joshua Brown had to move out of the South Side Flats and move somewhere else. That's the reason why there was some confusion there for a minute, because on the stand, he actually gave his South Side Flats address as his address. So there was some confusion when he was found murdered, and they kept saying in his apartment complex, outside of his in the parking lot of his apartment complex, and it was the Atera Apartments, because people were like, but I thought he stayed in the South Side Flats. No, not long after Botham was killed, he moved. And this young man moved into a gated community. So you a drug dealer. You got the police looking for you. You understand what I'm saying? You slipping around with the police watching you, and not looking for you, but with the police watching you and watching every move that you make. Why? Because you're getting ready to be a key witness against one of their own. And your testimony could very well, put this police officer or former police officer or whatever in prison. So you're being watched by the police. The DA has warned you, to stay out of trouble. Don't get in any kind of trouble. Don't get in any kind of altercation. Keep your nose as clean as you possibly can. But you a drug dealer. You running around trying to sell drugs. And a botched interstate drug deal got you killed 3 days after you testify against this white police officer. 3 days. A whole week ain't went by before you decide that you're going to get busy with your illegal drug dealing, knowing that the police still watching you. Knowing that they probably out to get you. But you going to wait just 3 days and decide that you're going to get all wrapped up and all involved in your illegal drug trade and mess around and get yourself killed. Come on now. But I told y'all last night. I told y'all in the video that I just put up last night that I guarantee you a black person was going to be the fall guy. I didn't know exactly what narrative they were going to come with. I didn't know if they were going to come with the gang violence. I didn't know if they were going to come with, some random shit or whatever. But I knew it was going to involve other black men. I knew that for a fact. So this whole drug deal thing just does not surprise me at all. But anyway, let me read this bullshit to you. And of course, what did they send out? They sent out a ugly ass. They sent out a black man to be the one to make this announcement. I guess they must have had a press conference or whatever. Dallas Assistant Police Chief Avery Moore. They sent him out to make this announcement. Dallas police investigating the killing of 28-year-old Josuha Brown are denying his death has anything to do with his involvement in the trial of former police officer Amber Geiger. Brown, a witness in the high-profile trial, was gunned down outside his apartment building last Friday, just 2 days after Geiger received her 10-year sentence for murdering Botham John in his apartment last year. In the news conference Tuesday, police alleged Brown died because of a botched drug deal between himself and 3 men from Louisiana. Louisiana now. As you know, there's been speculation and rumors that have been shared by community leaders claiming that Mr. Brown's death was related to the Amber Geiger trial and somehow the Dallas Police Department was responsible. I assure you that is simply not true, Assistant Chief Avery Moore told reporters, according to ABC News. See, we're not stupid. We're not stupid. We're not allowing anybody to dumb us down anymore. We're not allowing anybody to shut us up anymore. We're not allowing anybody to tell us that, you just need to be quiet and you just need to keep that to yourself and all of that. So we are putting it out there. We are putting it out there loudly, clearly, boldly, that we already know. We don't need to be told. We already know that the Dallas Police Department has something to do with this young man's murder. We already know that. And we're letting white supremacy know that we know that. We're letting this racist system know that we know exactly what went down in the parking lot of the Atera Apartments Friday night. We know exactly the reason why Josuha Brown is dead now. We know why. And then Lee Merritt went on social media and pretty much insinuated that there was this large possibility that the Dallas Police Department had something to do with this young man's death. And see, that's the reason why they're rushing to try to hurry up and get another narrative out there. That's the reason why they're rushing and trying to hurry up and put another story out there. That's the reason why they're trying to tarnish this young man's memory and trying to take away from the importance of what he did when he stood up against white supremacy and stood up against racism and was willing to testify against this racist white police officer. So they got to hurry up and do something. And of course, they got to send a white supremacist with a black face to deliver the message to us. I guess it's supposed to be easier for us to swallow if we get it from one of our own. But you're not one of our own. All skin folk ain't kin folk. And them sending somebody black to make this announcement and sending somebody black to deliver this message is not going to make it any easier for us to receive. We're still not buying the bullshit. We still know exactly what happened. Anyway, let me finish reading. Police have issued warrants for Thaddeus Charles Green, 22, Michael Diaz Mitchell, 32, and Jaquarios Mitchell, 20. Jaquarios Mitchell, 20. Now you know they black. Now you know them black men, right? Because you know white men don't have those types of names. So you do know that those are black men. The latter is being treated in a Dallas hospital for gunshot wounds allegedly sustained in a confrontation between Brown and the three men on Friday night. So supposedly, now hold up now, y'all. Now remember, we in a gated community. Remember, all of this is going on in a gated community, right? Okay, so we got them fighting. It's a whole gunfight that went on out here, and in this gated community, and there's not a bit of camera footage or video footage anywhere to show any of this in the parking lot of this gated community. These folks shooting at each other back and forth and all of this, and we just don't see nothing. Okay, let's keep going. Michael Mitchell and Green are still at large, Moore says. Does that still at large remind you anything? Does it remind you of that second suspect in the shooting when Brown was shot in the foot last year? That second suspect that they still haven't found. He's still at large too, huh? This is what Dallas police say happened on October 4th. Green and the Mitchells drove 4.5 hours from Alexandria, Louisiana to Dallas to purchase drugs from Brown. So they drove 4.5 hours from Louisiana to get some weed, because that's what supposedly he was selling, some weed. So they were willing to do a 9-hour trip, round trip, 9 hours, from Louisiana to Dallas, Texas, to do business with a man that had just been on national TV for testifying against a white police officer. Think about that. They were willing to do business with. They were willing not only to do business with, but to come to Dallas and do business with a man that had just been seen all over national TV for testifying against a white police officer. That white police officer was then found guilty and sentenced to 10 years in prison. But 2 days later, they're going to travel all the way from Louisiana to do business with this particular man to buy some weed. That drive, it should be noted, takes roughly 4.5 hours. They met outside of Brown's apartment where the drug deal went south. Now, how did they meet outside of his apartment? Because remember, this is a gated community. Meet signifies that he was there waiting on them and they showed up. He'd have had to buzz them in. Remember, it's a gated community. Remember, it's at night. These folks done drove 5.5 hours. 4.5 hours to get some weed. So he would have had to buzz them in. He would have had to buzz them in, use his access code to get them in. However it worked for his particular gate system, he would have had to do that to get them in. So he'd have had to been out there waiting on them. from NBC News. When the suspects arrived in the parking lot, Green got out of the vehicle to talk to Brown. The conversation escalated into a physical altercation, at which point Jacques Rios Mitchell got out of the vehicle, Moore said. He told police that's when Brown shot him in the chest. Okay. The conversation escalated into a physical altercation. Okay. At which point Jacques Mitchell got out of his vehicle. Okay, well, in order for the altercation to escalate to a physical altercation, looked to me like Jacques, whatever his name was, would have had to been out the car anyway. How is this going to be physical if one of them is standing out here and the other one's sitting in the car? How is that physical? Explain that to me. Explain to me how you have a physical altercation between two people. One of them standing outside the car, the other one sitting in the car. But that's what it says. So Mitchell got out the car. When Mitchell got out the car, that's when Brown just shot him in the chest. Just shot him in the chest. So like I said, here this man go, just been 2 days since this woman got 10 years in prison. He know he being watched. But now he riding around with a gun. Where was this gun at last year when he got shot in the foot? Why he didn't pull his gun then? There was a physical altercation then too. He didn't pull no gun. Let me keep reading. Green allegedly returned fire, hitting Brown in the lower body and killing him. He and Michael Mitchell then dropped off Jacques at a hospital before driving off. Okay, now you got to remember now. Remember, like we talked about last night, we still in this gated community. So you got shots being fired. You know, Brown done hit this boy in the chest, and now he done shot back, and he done hit Brown, and I guess Brown done collapsed. He laying on the ground, and supposedly they just jumped in whatever they was driving and sped away. Well, what did they do? Did they crash the gate down? Did they crash into the gate? Because with all this altercation going on and all of this shooting going on and all of that, I'm sure that wasn't nobody standing there holding the gate open. But again, we still have no surveillance. We still have no video of any of this. Cameras on the traffic lights, cameras in the apartment complex, but we still have no video of any of this. It just pops up out of nowhere. Just out of nowhere, all of a sudden, it's a drug deal gone bad. Shy, listen to this lie. Moore also said police confiscated 12 pounds of marijuana from Brown's apartment. And it's so funny. This boy done lost his life. But these damn people ought to be ashamed of themselves. 12 pounds of marijuana from Brown's apartment, along with 149 grams of THC cartridges and $4,157 in cash, according to NBC News. Weed. I'm going to say that again. These people drove 4.5 hours, was willing to make a 9-hour round trip from Louisiana to Dallas for weed. Weed. And this is the thing. Hold up now. Hold up. This is the thing. If he was meeting these young men in the parking lot so that this drug deal could go down, he was meeting them in the parking lot, right? So that the drug deal could go down. Why is all the dope in his house? Why he ain't got none of the dope with him if they supposed to be doing some kind of business transaction? Why is all the drugs the weed, the cartridges, and all of this, why is all that stuff still in his apartment? If that was the case, if that's what they meant to do, because that's what they saying, that it was a drug deal gone bad, it was a botched drug deal that they met so that they could, transfer, do this drug transaction. Okay, well, if that's the case, then why they didn't find no dope, no weed or drugs or whatever you want to call it, in Brown's car? Why they ain't find no dope in his car? So these folks done went and planted 12 pounds of marijuana and 149 grams of THC cartridges. They done went and planted this in this man's house. Because if you're getting ready to do a drug deal, you meeting up in the parking lot at the crib. You understand what I'm saying? You're not finna take these folks from Louisiana. You don't know nothing about these folks. These folks live in Louisiana. You're not finna take these folks in your house. You finna do the drug deal right where you at. So why didn't they find any of the drugs in the car? All right, let's keep going. This is ridiculous. This is so blatant and foolish. I told you it's funny. It's funny. Many were incredulous about the Dallas police's version of events, pointing out in social media posts that their explanation sounded eerily like the sprinkle some crack on him bit from Dave Chappelle's 2000 Killing Them Softly stand-up special. Others flagged the long drive, a 9-hour round trip for weed products. Who is going to travel 9 hours for some weed? They got plenty of weed in Louisiana. And if they ain't got what you want in Louisiana, it's someplace closer than Dallas, Texas, where you can get it. Brown's lack of criminal history and his recent participation in the Geiger trial as other reasons the story just does not add up. It just does not add up. This is what Zerlina Maxwell tweeted. I'm actually offended by how patently ridiculous this Dallas PD story is. If Josuha Brown was a drug dealer, we would have known it already because it would have come up during cross-examination. Also, Louisiana has plenty of weed. 0 people are driving 4.5 hours for weed. Ain't no drug dealer in their right mind volunteering to testify for the police in a case that has nothing to do with them. Dallas PD ain't give this cover up no effort at all. None whatsoever. They were in such a hurry to hurry up and get some kind of narrative out there, to push some kind of story, to try to tarnish this young man's image, because, people were standing up for him and people were rallying behind him, and people were screaming for justice for Josuha Brown, and people were putting the pieces of the puzzle together. So they were in such a hurry until they pieced this shit together like children do a little jigsaw puzzle. They put no kind of creativity, no nothing in this. They came at us with the same old bullshit. A drug dealer, come on now. We in 2019, we passed the drug dealer shit. I mean, if you wanted to do something different, hell, you could have let the boy be a hacker or something technological or whatever y'all call that shit. Something to do with Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or something other than a drug dealer. Y'all been throwing that drug dealer shit out on us for the last 30 years. Joshua Canoe, Dallas PD claiming the black witness who testified against a white cop who murdered a black man in his own apartment and was then immediately shot to death, was killed in a drug deal gone bad and had all this weed in his apartment while testifying against a cop. That's something. That's something. That's something to think about. You got 12 pounds of dope. 149 grams of TCH or THC or whatever cartridges in your house while you on the witness stand testifying against a racist police officer. And we know she was racist because she said she was racist in the text messages. When the girl told her, I got a dog for you, she said, but the dog is a little racist. Amber said, it ain't no problem. I am too. Now you in Dallas, Texas. You testified against a racist police officer who has killed a black man, but you walk around planning a drug deal. Come on now. But Dallas police maintained that Brown's death had nothing to do with the Geiger trial. Tweeting on Tuesday afternoon, the rumors shared by community leaders that Mr. Brown's death was related to the Amber Geiger trial and that Dallas Police Department was responsible are false. We encourage those leaders to be mindful because their words may jeopardize the integrity of the city of Dallas and the Dallas Police Department. That's a threat. That right there was a not very well veiled threat. We encourage those leaders to be mindful because their words may jeopardize the integrity of the city of Dallas and Dallas Police Department. That's a threat. That's a threat to Lee Merritt and to any other community leaders that want to stand up and call the police out for this bullshit right here. That's a direct threat. We encourage you to be mindful of what you're saying. We encourage you to watch your words. Why? Because running your mouth and talking too much and not watching your words is the reason why Joshua Brown is dead. He testified. So we are encouraging you to be mindful because your words may jeopardize the integrity of the city of Dallas and the Dallas Police Department. That's a threat. Days before his death, Brown was lauded by Dallas prosecutors for his bravery in testifying against the police. Attorney Lee Merritt, who is representing the John family, in a civil trial, wrote on Facebook over the weekend, Brown lived in constant fear that he could be the next victim of gun violence. Brown deserves the same justice he sought to ensure the John family. Okay, well, evidently he didn't live in fear of gun violence if he was a big-time drug dealer walking around carrying a gun. Those two things don't mesh. That he was afraid of being the next victim of gun violence, but yet he walking around toting a gun, selling drugs, getting in this big shootout in his apartment complex with these Louisiana folk that don't nobody know nothing about, that just popped up out of nowhere. I told you somebody was going to just pop up out of nowhere. I told you somebody was going to just pop up out of nowhere. So they got him one. Just popped up out of nowhere. But that's the end of that article. And that's in the root. And of course, I will have the link to this article in the description box. So you can go read this bullshit for yourself. But that's the breaking news. we are supposed to believe that Joshua Brown was a drug dealer and that a botched drug deal, a drug deal gone wrong between him and three unknown spectral beings that drove 4.5 hours from Louisiana is the reason why he dead, because that drug deal went wrong. That's what we supposed to believe. We supposed to believe that that young man that we saw testifying on that witness stand was this big major drug dealer. He had 12 pounds of weed. Not one or two, 12 pounds of weed. And again, we have two suspects that have just disappeared. We're supposed to be three men. Again, we have two of them that have just disappeared. But I told you in the last broadcast that it would be a young black man that would take the fall for this. I told you. And this, what's his name? Jaquarius Mitchell is going to take the fall for this. 20 years old. He's going to take the fall for this. Let me tell you what happened. Jaquarius Mitchell was involved in some foolery, in some fuckery, in some bullshit Friday night. The Dallas Police Department scurried to see if they could find a young black man who had been involved in some kind of gun violence around about the same time Friday night. They found this young man, found him in jail, and they have cut him a deal. For all we know, he may have killed somebody over yonder somewhere. For all we know, he may be from out of town and came into Dallas and got into some mess. But whatever mess he got into Friday night, it didn't have anything to do with Joshua Brown. But the police found their scapegoat. Just like I knew they would. And I knew it would be a young black man. I knew they would find a way to try to blame it on black crime, black on black violence. And you got to remember, y'all, all of this took place in a gated community with cameras everywhere, with cameras on the traffic lights in the area. But we have no video footage of any of this. And this wasn't something that happened in the space of the way the police are describing it. This is not something that happened in the space of 3, 4, 5 minutes. You know, they met up, they talked, evidently they argued. Then there was a physical altercation. And then the next thing you know, guns was drawn and folks were shooting. But don't no witnesses say nothing about hearing no fight. Don't no witnesses say nothing about witnessing no fight. Witnessing Joshua out there fighting with nobody. But according to this, there was a physical altercation before any shots were fired. Told you, they just blatant. And because Lee married and others that have, that have a voice, you understand what I'm saying? Have put it out there and have insinuated, you understand what I'm saying? That the Dallas Police Department very well could have had something to do with this. They had to come up with something. And they had to come up with something quick. They couldn't take their time to be creative. They had to come up with something quick. And the best they could come up with, he a black man. He was a black man. So the best they could come up with was a drug deal gone bad. That's the best they could come up with. And if anybody black is stupid enough to believe this, we need to cancel your black card. We need to cancel your black card. 2 days after Amber Geiger was sentenced to 10 years in prison for murdering Botham Jean. This is the best that they could do. This is the best that they could do to try to explain away Joshua Brown's murder. They know it ain't going to work. They know it's not going to work. But this is what happens when you have the crooks investigating the crooks. This is what happened when you have the police policing the police. No accountability. None whatsoever. They're not accountable for any of their actions. No accountability. And it's in the article. And then, like I said, they send a very real threat to Lee Merritt and anybody else who's running around talking about the Dallas Police Department, may have had something to do with this. We encourage those leaders to be mindful because their words may jeopardize the integrity of the city of Dallas and the Dallas Police Department. I just wanted to bring y'all this breaking news. I just wanted to let y'all know what's going on. They got him a suspect, a little 20-year-old black dude with a gunshot wound to the chest. That's all they needed. And his wound very well could be drug related, but it ain't got nothing to do with Joshua Brown. But if they offer him the right thing, just like they offered the other dude that shot him a $250,000 bond, and he's out on bond now. If they offer this young man the right thing, yeah, he'll play the game. He'll play the game. 10 years in prison for him is better than life. Because it's obvious he was shot in the chest. It's obvious he was involved in something. And that's all they needed. All they were looking for was the right scapegoat. And they found one. So guys, like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. Click that bell notification if you want to be notified when we upload videos. Click this link to this article and go read the article for yourself. And critical thinking. Critical thinking. Critical thinking. Like I said in the broadcast last night, if you got something in front of you, 1 and 1, and it's coming up to anything other than 2, you need to look at it again. And this is not coming up to 2. This is not coming up to 2 at all. But this is the America we live in. This is the criminal justice system that we live in. That's the reason why staying on code, understanding the code is so important. That's the reason why knowing who we are and understanding our true history and understanding our real place here in America as ADOS, as American descendants of slaves, as foundational Black Americans, that's the reason why it's so important. That's the reason why reparations and tangibles 2020 is so important. That's the reason why withholding our vote until somebody is serious about a Black agenda is so important. Because this is the kind of bullshit that we have to deal with in America. That we have dealt with in America for the last 400 plus years. The link to the article will be in the description box, along with the link to the PayPal if you decide that you want to support the channel. But please go read this. Please, y'all, get on code. Keep your eyes and your ears open. And as more details come out, I'll bring them to you. Y'all have a good evening.